go ahead and do this. Woo. Make sure it's all working. Okay, it says I'm live. I'm not sure if I'm live. Don't make this hard on me. There we go. We're live. Cool. Welcome, everybody. We're running a little late, but let's go ahead and get things started. We usually do a pre-show, but tonight we're not necessarily going to worry about it just because of how busy things have been. And on top of that, we just got to get crap going. So welcome, everybody, to another awesome episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk about the week's events in Geek for Friday night, December 8th, 2017. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope everybody's had an awesome week so far. We're deep into December now, almost ready to end the year. And tonight, we are ending the year with frickin' style. Why are we doing this? Because this is technically, unfortunately, going to be the last live podcast for the year. We do have some bonus content that's going to be coming out later on in the weeks to come, but it's the holidays, guys. So we all have various things going on. One of us works retail. Some of us have family coming in that are traveling from various places. It's only fair to be able to give people that time because usually December is also a vacation deal. So this is going to be the last live podcast that we record for 2017. But don't worry, you're going to get plenty of content on the podcast. Just it won't be live. So there's plenty to be able to go there. And of course, I'm being joined by my panel of fellow YouTubers, fellow geeks, fellow awesome guys in general. And thank you guys so much for coming out, including the fact that we're going to be doing a live Q&A if we can get through the stories quick enough. Let's go and start things off down the line with Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah of From the Shelf, Romney's Reviews of Rhapsody in Cinema, Monster Clash. Is there anything I'm leaving out there?
No, I think you got it all.
All right. How you doing, Romney?
Well, doing pretty good. This week's had its fair share of ups and downs. The down is that for some reason my Achilles tendon decided to start acting up, so I've been having to limp the whole week, which sucks too because I like to fence, but when your Achilles tendon is hurting, you can't fence. But on a more positive note, in my bid to decompress after the month-long stress of NaNoWriMo, I managed to stumble across a really rare find in the used DVD section of my local Graywell, and that is the first 30 episodes of Saint Seiya, the uncut version, not the crappy kids dub that we got. So
very nice.
Yeah, so that's been
a pretty sweet find.
Indeed. And so I've been enjoying that in the times in which I've been having to ice my foot from, the Achilles tendon pain. So it's been making the week pass by a little bit better.
Yeah, I would say so. Being able to enjoy a beloved anime while you recover from an Achilles tendon injury that can help things out a little bit. Now, we just unfortunately lost the Shadow Blazer. He'll try and get back as soon as he can, but let's go ahead and go to Brinton Volley of Brinton Volley Gaming. How you doing tonight, Brinton?
Brinty? Is that what we're calling me now?
We're calling you Brinty now. Where's my cigar so that I can be J. Jonah Jameson? We're calling you Brinty now. That's the way it goes. Parker, do you have the pictures?
That just sounds like what you should change your Twitter handle just for the holidays. It sounds like either a brand of toothpaste or a brand of cocoa.
I like this, actually. I really do.
Okay, I'm gonna...
Brinty, the gift that keeps giving back.
Oh, man, I just had so many dirty things run through my mind when you said that, but I'm doing good.
It's all right. That's the way that this goes.
I mean, this is me we're talking about. I don't know why I'm feeling shocked by any of what I just said. I think the only thing that's shocking is that I didn't say it.
we are talking about the guy who came up with Sassy Senoritas and the Bad Boner. So that is something that does happen. So this is definitely something that's going to be going on. And so we... Unfortunately, the Shadow Blazer himself is having a little bit of internet trouble, so when he comes back in, we'll reintroduce him. But unfortunately, just in case his internet continues to go out, we'll just keep on going on. Let's go ahead and get things started tonight because I am trying to keep things as quick and succinct as we can so that we can get to you guys and be able to answer your questions live that came from Twitter, that came from Facebook, and that also are going to be coming in the live chat. Welcome, everybody, for coming out. And the first thing that we need to talk about is I'm trying to keep things as high note as we possibly can because we've had nothing but low note this year. And we still kind of have low note tonight, but we'll make it work. And the first story we're going to be covering is an update again on the Alex Mauer situation, which at the beginning of the week looked like we were going to get some great news. And then it kind of fell apart near the end there. And the first piece of news actually came from Sid Alpha as well as from Leonard French that Imagos has officially won the lawsuit against Alex Mauer, and that there was a settlement. Basically, from what I could get from the documentation is the only reason I can get simply is that Alex didn't want to pursue this any further financially, and that she was going to have to bow out of that. And so it was basically I want to call it a non-disparagement agreement. Would that be correct, Romney?
Yes. That is kind of part of it, is that it's a non-disparage agreement. And again, it's kind of erroneous to say that Imagos won, since this was an out-of-court settlement, not an actual ruling.
Yes, and the live chat is actually saying more copyright. No, that's not the case. So the lawsuit has basically said that she's not continuing on. She forfeits the right to the properties that she was claiming everybody on. And that was going to be the end of it, right? Because this was going to be their settlement, and they pay their legal parties and go their separate ways. Before I go any further, let's just go ahead and welcome in Alex the Shadow Blazer, who is joining us, even though he has massive internet issues. How you doing tonight, Alex?
Well, my internet sucks tonight, so this is my last go out of it before I just throw in the towel and say goodnight.
That's all right. All right, we'll still try and make it work. But yeah, going back into the Alex Mauer situation, we thought it was all solved until literally a couple of days later when we got additional videos from Leonard French. Apparently, Alex is not satisfied with how things ended up and has been talking some serious trash to the judge.
What the hell?
Yes. I wish I could actually have the comments. They're actually in the Leonard French video if people want to actually dig those out. But basically, Alex made things worse on herself by calling out the judge and calling the judge incompetent and saying this is not what she agreed to and all that stuff, which in turn the judge retaliated by saying we need to actually do this. So Romney can actually kind of explain this a little bit better, but the judge was insisting that everything happened ex parte, which ex parte is basically saying that we don't talk about how this case is going until all parties involved are there to actually talk the issue. Correct, Romney? Or have I got that wrong?
I believe so. I'm not too familiar with that particular legal term. Yes. I only just barely heard about but yeah, pretty much it says, according to the Google definition, ex parte means with respect to or in the interests of one side only or of an interested outside party. So from the looks of it, it basically means that that the judge is not wanting to discuss this case without both parties present and without actually deliberating. So it basically means that since Alex is trying to talk to the judge, it's very much a case of, hey, I'm not going to talk only to you. If Don Thacker and Leonard French are also present, then yes, we can talk about the case.
Exactly. And so the judge actually issued a notice basically saying that we're not talking about the case unless we have all parties involved, and actually issued an official one to all parties involved saying if you're going to badmouth the case, if you're going to badmouth this, that, or the other, you need to make sure that the judge, that Don Thacker, that Leonard French, and you are all involved. And if you have a lawyer, that they're all involved. Alex did not take this kindly. And the only thing that we know about this, because Leonard didn't disclose too much, aside from the official documentation that literally the next day was issued. So the first thing that I'm talking about was December 5th, and this was December 6th, where an official hearing has been established for Monday, December 18th at 9:30 to address this very issue that Alex seems to keep having. And on top of that, the judge has actually, so the way that this actually worked is that she could contact the judge's office to be able to get things done. That line of communication is officially cut off to Alex Mauer. She can only talk about this case in regards to doing it all ex parte. So she has to have the judge there. She has to have Dawn and Leonard there, as well as himself, herself, whatever you want to say. I have really no respect for Alex Mauer, so from here on in, it's himself. Sorry, you held YouTubers hostage. I don't really have a whole lot of respect for you. But you can't do it unless all of those parties are involved. If they're not, then you're done. And I have a feeling that given Alex Mauer's predictable nature, especially in regards to all of this, that she's not, or he is not going to be all that cooperative when they walk into the court. This could actually end badly for Alex Mauer and continue to make this whole situation undesirable. So I'll go ahead and open this up to you guys. What is your take on it? And then I'll give my opinion on it. I guess we should start up with Romney, because he'd probably be able to bring the most legal mindset to us.
Well, looking at this, and I had known about the settlement, and looking at the actual documents here, the case was also dismissed with prejudice pursuant to the agreement of counsel and pro se party. So basically it means that the case is dismissed, but if, at least in terms of the settlement, if either party violates the settlement, it means the case can be brought back to court within the state of Pennsylvania. This is the first I've heard of Mauer actually rattling the cage a little bit, so I don't know too much about that particular thing, since this is literally the first I've heard of it, because I thought the settlement was the end of it, but, well, as we've seen here, not quite the case. But honestly, looking at it, there's not much that can really be added, because it's clear that Imagos is willing to keep fighting, and it's Mauer. If Mauer simply walked away, she would be able to move on. But it looks like she's not letting this go.
Nope.
And honestly, that is not a very smart move, considering that she is, one, representing herself, which is a really dumb move. Ask any legal expert that you don't ever try to represent yourself unless you know what you're doing, which 9 times out of 10, if you're trying to represent yourself, you don't. And so, yeah, I think given that she started trying to talk to the judge and trying to trash the judge, it very much is the classic case of, hey, you had an out, and not only did you not take the out, you've pretty much burned that bridge to take said out.
Yeah.
And so now the judge is having to make an actual ruling. And so we don't know what's going to go down in this upcoming hearing on December 18th, aside from what may be the declaratory judgment that Don Thacker and Leonard French are asking for. And so most we could see is that we'll get an official judgment, but what will probably happen is that Mauer may be found in contempt of court.
Yeah. The other thing, too, that I wasn't able to confirm on the matter, but it seems like they may have changed judges, too, because I could have sworn that the initial case, like the initial judge was a woman from the statements that we actually read in a previous episode, but now it's Burl Schiller. So that sounds like a guy's name to me, but maybe I've got that wrong. So it may also be that she's not dealing with the judge that may have been sympathetic with her anymore, with him, her, whatever anymore. And now this judge is officially pissed.
Yes, it is possible. I'm trying to find new information as I'm looking here to try to find what the statements were specifically. But again, since it's all YouTube videos, that makes it kind of difficult. Yeah,
that's kind of the difficult thing. While you're working on that, Alex, what is your take on the Alex Mauer situation that he just keeps on making things worse for himself?
Okay, well, I want everybody who watches the show and on this panel after this to go look up the nostalgia critic Tommy Wiseau show, where he makes fun of somebody called John from theroommovie.com and basically satirizes the whole Content ID claim. This was years ago, but I love that this is what it keeps reminding me of. It literally reminds me of Alex Mauer when he's doing his satirical bend on John from theroommovie.com. And is one of my favorite lines in that little sketch, that little bit he's doing, is like, I even sued myself the other day. Guess who won? Me! This is seriously what Alex Mauer is becoming. It's just that. It's like, this
isn't even serious anymore. This is just ridiculous at this point.
This is why I'm saying the case should have been tossed out ages ago. Just because Mauer has consistently, time and time again, shown no competence in the legal system, no competence as being, and no business in being in court. This is a civil matter, it's not a criminal matter, so I don't have much say other than if you can't represent yourself and give yourself due process in a civil matter, you're firing your own attorneys and you want to act as yourself, but you can't seem to do it legitimately and right, then you have no business in court. It's just this nonsense keeps getting dragged on and on and on. And really, it's just I want to see contempt of court and be done with it.
Yeah, I can understand that point of view too. Like that's kind of where a lot of people are. Is just like, holy crap! We heard the settlement. This could have been over. This could have been James Romine, and we would have had, for the most part, 2 successes that went out to it. But then Alex just keeps on making things harder for himself in this regard. So it just gets worse and worse as things pile on. Brinton, your thoughts before I get into mine. So where are you standing with Alex Maurer? Well, showing exactly how much he respects the court system.
Well, honestly, most of my thoughts kind of align with both Romney and Alex and what they said. I feel like it's just being drawn out now. It's just ridiculous. There's no more, there's nothing more I can add to that. I think just from my own personal standpoint, with how much I have no tolerance towards stupidity, because I feel at this point this is just sheer stupidity on behalf of Alex Maurer. I'm just kicking back, chomping on some popcorn, waiting to see how this all, how it all ends. So I look forward to seeing how it will truly end.
Well, and the bottom line is that you're not the only one. I'm pretty sure a dozen people, including all of the YouTubers that Alex held hostage during the whole situation, are all waiting with bated breath on this entire situation. In fact, one of the things I found interesting from the settlement is that this does not necessarily bar somebody else coming in and suing Alex. There's a bunch of YouTubers right now that if they had the money, which they probably don't, let's just be honest here. I mean, nobody wants to go into a lawsuit willingly unless you have no other choice. But there are people here that could technically take the fight to Alex and bring him to court over the fact that they lost money, they lost revenue, they lost viewers, they lost all that stuff because Alex held their channel hostage and made sure that their videos didn't get the viewership that they probably could have gotten right at launch. So it's one of those things where, going into my opinion, as I just kind of put it in the chat, I could see why I could see the point of view from all arguments here, but I've kind of made it very clear the second that we started covering this stuff. I have no respect for Alex Thomas Maurer, and the reason I don't have respect for him is because simply he did the one thing he shouldn't have done. It doesn't matter if he was in the right in this case or not. When you brought third parties into the mix and you prevented them from sustaining their own livelihoods, being able to gain extra money from their hobbies, that's where I have the problem. That's where I drew the line, and I said, enough is enough. This is where we're covering it. This is where this is absolutely ridiculous, and therefore I have no respect for Maurer in any way, concept, or creed, whatever you want to put it. And in fact, what I actually see coming from this is, if already he is already being this indignant and disrespectful to the judge, what's going to happen when you put him in a courtroom and the judge actually issues a decision? Because here's the thing, in a courtroom, the judge's decisions are final. You can appeal them later, but they are final in that courtroom at that given time. And the way that I kind of look at it is, I'm pretty sure all of us have seen at least one video like this where some teenage kid gets brought in for a DUI or something like that and is absolutely respectful with the judge until the ruling does not go their way, and they instantly break down. They start having a temper tantrum on camera, by the way, start flipping off the judge, start screaming obscenities, and then they get jail sentences. Which, I'm not saying that's what could happen to Alex in this case. I don't know if that's necessarily where they can go in a what appears to me more like a civil court instead of a criminal court, but I can pretty much guarantee you that a judge can still cite her for contempt, or cite him for contempt. So,
all right,
at that point, that's
just
more issue on Alex's end. Go ahead.
All right, and I just finished looking over the actual screenshots Leonard French has dissected, and so what it looks like is that Alex Maurer was specifically contacting the clerk for Judge Schiller, And hold on, I gotta let my cat out of the room because she decided now to. Okay, but basically, she had been contacting the judge's clerk repeatedly regarding the settlement, and was even and looking at some of the messages, she was more or less expecting the settlement to be struck down because her understanding of the legal system seems to be far removed from reality.
Yeah.
And that's where the judge issued the ex parte statement saying that in order to remain neutral, both parties have to be present, effectively telling Alex Maurer to stop trying to contact the judge regarding the case without first notifying Leonard French and Don Backer that she is contacting the judge. And so that seems to be the big case here, is that not only was she disparaging Judge Schiller through various proxy accounts and various messages on social media, but also repeatedly bombarding the clerk with various communiques seemed to be the other big problem here. So thus the reason for the actual hearing, that we thought the settlement was settled, but given that she was already kind of violating some of the terms of said settlement, that's why they're going back into court.
Yep. So already, like, if you're having to go back into court over all of this, it just can't get better for you. The only advice that if Alex is listening, and I considering how disrespectful I've been to him, and I don't care because again, I've given my viewpoint on the matter. The only advice I'd give you is you need to be respectful to those who kind of hold your livelihood in their hands. Like, if you have problems here, I'm not saying you're going to be able to do music ever again, because I really don't think you can, considering the scuffle that you've unleashed. But if you have problems with the judge too, that's not going to help your case at all. It's really not, especially when people just kind of look at that and see that you're rocking the boat so much. With that being said, there really isn't a whole lot to add to this one until we actually have the actual court date. So let's go ahead and move on into the next one, which is more YouTube news, because that's always so fun to talk about, everybody. And this one doesn't really do a whole lot, but Google has announced that they will be hiring 10,000 additional people to clean up YouTube. Okay, already I could give you endless amounts of problems on what you actually mean by clean up YouTube, but thankfully the article kind of goes into that. They are going to have more than 10,000 people working to address content that might violate our policies. So basically, the stuff that we were screaming at for 2-3 years ago, like to hire more people to actually address all of this stuff and actually go through these videos and see if they actually do violate copyright. They're finally doing it. So yay, we won, except the problem is that we kind of know already where Google is standing on a lot of this stuff, considering their policies over the ongoing year. So at that point, I kind of agree with some of the commenters on Twitter and Facebook that are basically saying, oh, so what you're basically doing is you're going to be hiring 10,000 of your most diligent heroes to fill these spots. That's what you're going to do. It's hard not to make that joke, but that's really, given Google's kind of track record here, that's probably what they're going to do. So with that being said, let's go ahead and open things up. What are you guys' thoughts on these 10,000 additional jobs to quell the content violations, to quell probably a lot of the copyright stuff? Good idea or a bad idea for YouTube and Google to do this now, considering they could have been doing this years ago?
Hey, they're making this statement, but I don't see anything changing. I mean, they've made statements saying they're going to try to fix things before, but how often have they actually fixed things? Not very. And so I look at this like, oh, great, you're hiring 10,000 more people. I'll believe it when I see it, when you actually start, doing what you say you're going to do, because we've been down this road more times than we can count.
That's the other truth here too, is that this is not the first time that stuff has been talked about. I kind of want to go down the angle of this has to be true, because there's just so much bad publicity on YouTube right now that they have to do it. But Romney, you got a point there. They don't have to. They could easily just say, oh, we're going to do this, and then 2 months down the road, nobody checks in.
Yeah, especially considering that they keep trying to automate the process, because even our local NBC affiliate was talking about the issues some of the local YouTube content creators, granted it's the ones that are family friendly because, well, Utah, but how even they've been affected. But it's very much the same case of, yeah, we've heard it before, YouTube. You keep saying you're going to fix things. Well, you better actually start fixing things before I'm inclined to believe you.
Yeah, exactly. And in a lot of those cases, not just necessarily start fixing things, but maybe start fixing things in the right ways, because this is more meant to address the whole YouTube Kids situation and all of the adpocalypse stuff that's happened this year. But this stuff has been screened for since freaking Content ID was issued. Okay. And probably even earlier than that. So at that point, it's kind of hollow coming from YouTube. Alex, what's your take on this? Is YouTube doing the right thing, or are they just, blowing smoke?
In this case, I feel like they are trying. I mean, like Romney, I'm a little skeptical. It is the case. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. But considering all the bad press and all the bad publicity they got, goddamn webcam, they got during this year. Anyway, considering all the bad press they got during this year, sorry, it's the cords are all tangled up, and so it's pushing it. Yeah. This is my train of thought. This has not been a great day.
You might just want to disengage the camera, and we'll just have your icon there, because it's already like it's like a typewriter, man. It's just like slowly going to the right.
Screw the camera at this point.
It's like it's got a typewriter montage going.
Anyway,
or Alex.
Yeah, it's not my night. So, yeah, considering all the bad press and all bad publicity between, well, the adpocalypse, I mean, besides from the point of view of content creators who've been stifled under it, there's also just the fact they got so much negative publicity. And, Google's a corporation like any other corporation. They want to have good PR on their side. They want to be a company that has trust from the public, and it's hard to do business when you don't have at least a little bit of trust. Whatever, corporations can be corporations, and not every corporation's going to behave, but still, Google, I feel like they are, at least they want to spin the publicity back in their favor a little bit after so many problems this year. So, but like Romney said, I'm going to have to believe it to see it.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where, as content creators, we've been burned way too much. So the fact that YouTube even says this stuff, we're just like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. Brinton, where are you standing with it?
I'll believe it when I see it.
Pretty much. But I mean, the other thing that I want to get into is, like, is this accurate? Like, are they going to hire 10,000 YouTube heroes? Like, I mean, Alex and me were already talking about this earlier today, but I mean, Google is based in California, correct? So at that point, if they're going to hire, they're going to hire locally. So at that point, you're technically hiring the heroes anyway.
Well, I mean, to be fair, a big tech company like Google is going to attract resumes from pretty much anywhere in the world. Yes, they are going to certainly do substantial local hiring, of course.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's going to be an open job call that anyone who with the experience can apply for, or they'll simply recruit from within.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, the joke gets made, but it could entirely be true. Like, they could bring people who are in the YouTube Heroes program just to give them a little bit more authority and for them to abuse things even more. Because here's the thing, like, they are also going in to educate the algorithm. They're also going in to say, like, what videos are deemed worthwhile or deemed that don't violate YouTube's policies. And those policies change all the time. I'm thoroughly convinced they change all the time. Like, they change with patch updates. So at that point, they can literally decide that, oh, well, Brinton did a video of Super Mario Galaxy 2 and he praised Mario. How dare you? And therefore, Brinton immediately loses his channel because, well, he's got more than 3 Super Mario Galaxy 2 videos. That's literally how this could go, people. That's the sad reality.
A thing that came to mind, just with a couple of things you're saying, Adam. One of my main concerns, which is why I said, I'll believe it when I see it, is the fact that, they said we are going to hire 10,000 people. So it's like, okay, first they have to interview, select, and eventually come up with 10,000 eligible people whom they're going to have to hire. Great. How long is that going to take? Next, once 10,000 people have been hired, they have to train them on the algorithm and what, just like you said, there's, what is deemed good, what is deemed bad, what am I supposed to look for? How am I supposed to, me as an individual 1 out of 10,000 supposed to micromanage YouTube? So how long is that training going to take? And I mean, this is Google that we're talking about. So how intensive is it going to be? Is there going to be some sort of test at the end that everybody has to pass or you don't get your job? I'm just brainstorming, coming up with possible things that could happen. So the thing is, by the time that there are 10,000 people whom Google have said, yes, you all can now make sure that these problems that we had in 2017 don't continue anymore, who's to say that will happen by the end of January 2018? It could be months. It could even take a year before Google's okay, send them out, they're ready.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm skeptical, and why I'm saying, well, I'll see it when I'll believe it when I see it, because I can see this being a very, very long process. And there's going to be even not to be a Debbie Downer for what YouTube could possibly become as we enter 2018, but I could just see even more problems piling on as they're trying to get 10,000 people ready to tackle it and just get rid of it all. So,
and here's the scary thing too. This actually got brought up in the live chat from Robin's Review World. Could Alex Maurer get hired? Yes, because here's the thing. When I look at this job description and the qualifications, basically the way that I see this is your job is to watch videos all day and to go through them and see whether or not they violate YouTube's policies. So could somebody like Alex Maurer get hired? Yeah.
But to that, it raises the question of how impartial. What is the litmus test for impartiality that Google would use to make sure that they aren't hiring those people that have very clear biases? Because it could go either way. I mean, I remember we covered the backlash that EA got when they brought Anita Sarkeesian on as a consultant for one of the Mirror's Edge games. And so, if news of them hiring someone like Alex Maurer got out, that would not be a good PR move, no matter what side of whatever issues you're on. Given Maurer's infamy, we've commented that YouTube and Google are fairly inept, but they're not that dumb. They're not that smart. Well, they're not the greatest, but they're not that stupid. They would see someone like Alex Maurer applying, and they would know, yep, this is a can of worms that we're not going to deal with. We've already lost advertisers. We don't want to lose any more.
Exactly. This is something that could go down a very slippery slope. And like you brought up, I mean, if Alex could get hired, if Alex passes the litmus test, who's to say somebody like Anita wouldn't? I mean, I've been hearing rumors about this for, I want to say about 4 or 5 months. And it just the thought of it freaks me out a little bit. And it's just simply because if you look at Anita Sarkeesian, it doesn't matter her viewpoints or anything like that. She's someone that's gotten burned big time. And the rumor is that there's now a YouTube ethics board and she's on it. Wow, that's a scary thought if you think about it. If that's 100% accurate, which I doubt, if you think about it, that is a scary prospect. Because a lot of the people that burned her are YouTubers.
Yeah, especially when you consider the debacle that happened at VidCon with one of the panels.
Yeah.
It's very much an issue that just saying they're hiring people to address this issue, it's not enough. YouTube needs to actually put in a much better system. The key thing that is important is an appeals process. Is actually if a video gets flagged, what are the options for the creator to appeal it before they get bombarded with so many strikes that their channel disappears? That's one thing they've got to get rid of, is that automated 3 strikes you're out system, because that's half the problem, is that oftentimes channels could get taken down before they even get a chance to fight back.
Exactly. So I think we've pretty much hit the nail on the head. Unless you guys have any final thoughts, I'm just going to go ahead and move into the next story, because again, this is all up to Google. and Google could easily do it, or it could easily just 2 months down the road realize that we all forgot about it and not have to hire anybody. Or they could exactly do the nightmare scenario, which we talked about. They could just bring in the YouTube heroes to basically take us all down, kind of thing. If we don't have the same viewpoints or we don't follow the guidelines that Google changes on a daily basis, and there you go, your videos are gone, demonetized, or in some cases just struck down.
I get the feeling that this is just secretly a marketing ploy for the sequel to The Internship. Like, are we going to suddenly get Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson coming out saying, "Oh yeah, this was just a publicity stunt. We're doing The Internship too"?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I've officially decided is, like, just given the level of crap that YouTube's had to deal with, yeah, I've had to look at like legitimate other sources to put my videos up on, because I don't know if YouTube's going to be there in the next 1 to 2 years. And when we covered because I think we covered the Facebook one last time, didn't we? The Facebook possible video service? Yeah, that's looking a lot more appetizing right now if Facebook can run things properly.
It's either that or you become a Twitch streamer, and then Twitch is going to be bombarded with all the people who wanted to make it on YouTube, and now it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go over to Twitch, and who knows, like, those problems could be carried over to Twitch.
They really could.
Or alternately, you get a bunch of people trying to jump ship to Screenwave, or you've got... Basically, we are starting to see people trying to compete with YouTube, but, well, YouTube is ubiquitous, and so it's very hard to topple the king. Not impossible, but there's no one service that can be considered a direct competitor, since most of the ones with the money and influence have since funded their own websites. I mean, if you look at Rooster Teeth, they've got Rooster Teeth first, and then they've also done partnerships with Verve. And with Twitch, you've got a lot of multi-channel networks that have their own programming lineups on Twitch. So it's getting harder and harder for the little guy to actually put their wares out there.
All right. So let's go ahead and get into the next story, which is kind of wrapping up the tech portion, but we do kind of have another tech story afterwards just because it mixes well with both of them. And that is, I think it was last night, wasn't it? The Video Game Awards have happened, and we have our nominees or our nominations and selections and our announcements and all that fun stuff. So I'm going to try and cover it as quick as we possibly can, then we can get into our thoughts on the matter. I'm not going to cover every single award that was done, probably just the major ones, but Game of the Year has gone to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is not necessarily I'm not there, but Best Game Direction also went to Breath of the Wild. This is kind of a clean sweep for Breath of the Wild for most part, and also for Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. I know that a couple of things went to Cuphead, but a lot of the major ones did go to Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, as well as or Senua's Sacrifice, along with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, including the best performance went to Melina Jurgens, I think is how you say it, for Hellblade. Which I actually did agree with that, because I have seen stuff on Hellblade, and I think if it was all motion capture, that was really amazing to look at. Enough so that even after talking with a couple of our fellow panelists on the podcast, I'll probably pick up the game just to see what it's about. We also have a Best Ongoing Game, which is going to Overwatch. Best Mobile Game to Monument Valley 2. Handheld Game went to Metroid Samus Returns, which is kind of not unexpected, but wow, the level of Nintendo games on this one just tells me that, yes, we need another handheld out on the market. We did also have a couple of ones going to Resident Evil 7, Wolfenstein 2. Like I said, Cuphead got a few. And also Persona 5 got the best role-playing game, so I'm at least happy about that. Although, I would have wanted Final Fantasy 15 to get it, but that's because I'm horribly biased.
Boy, I'm sorry. This joke writes itself. Stand on her head if you didn't see it coming.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, you know what? I'm going to give that to you, Romney, because that works. Best Family Game, Super Mario Odyssey. Best Strategy Game, Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. That was a little bit of a shock when it was going up against XCOM 2. Best Sports Racing Game.
Hold up. Can I interrupt you for a second? In terms of speaking of biases, for Super Mario Odyssey, I mean, for what little I did play, I did have fun with it, but, the Sonic fanboy in me did want Sonic Mania to win.
Yeah, I understand that too. The only thing that bothers me on the matter is, look, I've made it very clear in my review. I'm not saying that Breath of the Wild is a horrible game. I don't think it is. I think it's a good Zelda game. Is it my favorite Zelda game? Absolutely not. But I would have also liked to have seen some love for Horizon Zero Dawn. That's my only beef with this whole thing, is that a couple of these that went to Breath of the Wild, I felt like could have gone for Horizon as well. And it's going to be something that I have to deal with, because I want to at least acknowledge Guerrilla Games and the fact that they originally were an FPS developer, and then they did Horizon, and Horizon was a good enough experience that I think it should have gotten some acclamation for it.
Which categories was Horizon Zero Dawn?
Pretty much in all of the ones that Zelda was in. So let's see. So best game direction, they were contending with them. Best game of the year, they were contending with them. Best narrative, which went to What Remains of Edith Finch, they were in there, but Zelda wasn't. Art direction, both Horizon and Legend of Zelda were there, but Cuphead took it. So
you can't Cuphead brought back a style of art that hasn't been seen for a long time, and they nailed it.
So, I agree. Yeah. I like Cuphead. In fact, I have no problem saying that Cuphead is probably going to be in my top 5 when I actually get around to doing those games. But Horizon also will be too, because I am going to acknowledge Horizon for being a brand spanking new franchise, and being able to be well established from a well established studio like Guerrilla Games. They did a good job. I know that some people had issues at launch, and guys, as a AAA game, that you're going to have those issues. It's just something that I've learned to accept from the AAA gaming industry until they fix this crap. But that's just going to be one of those things where I really wish that we could have gotten some acknowledgement. I mean, even for crying out loud, Ashley Birch was up for best audio or best performance. And nothing against Malia Jurgens. I have not seen your overall performance, and obviously there was a reason that you got picked out as Senua to get that. But I mean, you were up against Laura Bailey from Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. You were up against Claudia Black, also from Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, Brian Bloom from Wolfenstein 2, and Ashley Birch from Horizon Zero Dawn. And holy crap, if I had to pick I'm biased in this matter, Ashley Birch did an amazing job in Horizon Zero Dawn.
Now that I can completely agree with. She voices Chloe in Life is Strange. I picked up her voice immediately, and
Tiny Tina.
And Chloe is one of my favorite characters in Life is Strange. So for me, I was just like, oh yeah, already love Aloy. Unfortunately, you and I are gonna have to disagree with this, Adam. I honestly believe that Game of the Year does deserve to go to Breath of the Wild.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing in that regard, but game direction could have gone for Horizon, in my opinion.
I can agree and also disagree with that, because okay. I also feel that Breath of the Wild deserves game direction. But there is one down here. I'm sorry, I feel like I interrupted you going over everything, but I guess I'll just make this one last comment. There's one here. Where is it? Best action/adventure game. I Breath of the Wild won that one. I would even say that
could have gone to Horizon.
That really could have gone to Horizon. I'll be honest with that one.
The other one that we probably should mention, because our thumbnail artist Marta would probably kill us if we don't, and that is the best score in music going to Nier Automata. If I'm saying that wrong, then Marta will let me know. But yeah, so we did have those acknowledgments, but I don't mean to brush over the awards. We'll get into that. I also want to get into some of the other major announcements that did happen at the Game Awards, one of which got a lot of publicity in the fact that Hideo Kojima made his way to the Game Awards, and he didn't come alone. He came with a trailer for Death Stranding. So we got additional coverage of that, and I still have not seen this trailer yet, but holy crap, the messages on my phone saying, have you seen this? So I'm already excited about that. I can already tell you guys that one of our panelists is horribly biased on this announcement, which is Bayonetta 1 and 2 coming to the Switch, along with Bayonetta 3 being announced as being worked on for the Switch. We also had Soul Calibur 6. We had In the Valley of the Gods. We also had a possible Bloodborne 2 teaser that happened. There's lots to go over in the Video Game Awards. And so really what I want to do here when I open this up to the panel right now is let's go into our bests, our worsts of... We've kind of gone into the awards coverage except for Alex and Romney, but I also want to get into like what was the trailer that instantly just got you excited for 2018? Because there's lots there, including the official Sea of Thieves release date for March 20th, which I won't be reviewing. Sorry, guys, it's not happening. Let's go ahead and start things up with Romney. So what were you excited about with the results of the Game Awards as well as the announcements?
Honestly, I haven't really followed the Game Awards at all.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, and honestly, award shows in general, I've just gotten burned on in general because, well, once you've seen enough disappointing Oscars telecast, it's very hard to really get any enthusiasm for any awards shows. And so, honestly, the clean sweep for Breath of the Wild, I'm not at all surprised. So, there's that. But out of the stuff that was announced, the announcement that has me the most peaked is Soul Calibur 6. I've mentioned in the past that I am a fan of Soul Calibur. I do like the story. And given what I've been hearing about Tekken 7 and how they went back to basics and tried to, give a complete experience instead of railroading in multiplayer like everything else, I'm kind of optimistic that, hey, maybe they'll actually fix Soul Calibur this time instead of rushing it out the door like Soul Calibur 5.
Like, wow, they might actually fix the dang thing.
Yeah, and part of what has me a bit peaked is given the two characters that we were shown, Mitsurugi and Sophitia, which, if you're familiar with the story of Soul Calibur, kind of has me raising an eyebrow of, okay, well, are they retconning Soul Calibur 5, or is there some weird time-traveling shenanigans going on, given, well, the fate of Sophitia, which, granted, we didn't actually see on screen, but is heavily implied with the story of 5. And so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, either they're going back to the beginning, or they're trying to hope that people forget that 5 existed, which I would be in favor of because 5's story was absolute crap. But and looking at the mechanics, it does have my attention where it's a case of, okay, you've got a few interesting mechanics that are kind of twists on the guard impact. So out of all the games that are revealed, that's the one that has the most attention. Because again, Tekken 7's filled me with high hopes that maybe they won't screw the pooch with Soul Calibur.
Yeah, exactly. That's at least the hope. Because, I mean, I love Soul Calibur, but it's been very difficult, in my opinion, to be a fan, probably since 2. And like I love the 2 one, but I have a love-hate relationship with 3. But then things kind of went off the rails for me with 4 and 5, and I just lost interest. But I will admit, I saw the trailer for it. I am excited for 6 to see what at least they're going to do with it, because now we have brand new consoles, and it'll be interesting to see what can actually happen. Alex, where are you standing with the Game Awards? What did you get that was exciting for you, as well as were you in agreement with some of the awards that were being handed out?
Well, I didn't catch the ceremony either. Last night I had a family fair that went on for a good chunk of the evening, so got back kind of late. But anyway, it's kind of looking at the most awards here, it's pretty much a split between Cuphead, Hellblade, and Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is pretty cool. So it's like kind of a 3-way share between the 3. Of course, being Breath of the Wild is pretty much the only game I've played out of almost all of these. My biases are there, having really enjoyed that game. So good for Zelda Breath of the Wild there. Mm-hmm. As for anything else, I'm impressed that Cuphead did take quite a few for, this charming little indie game. I don't know if I'll play it, even though I like platforms. I've heard it's really hard.
Oh, we've already got requests, dude. You might not be able to walk out of it. And it's great. It's Contra-esque gameplay, so I can already hear the cringe going on in Alex's mouth right now, just grinding teeth.
I don't like playing really hard games, okay?
Well, we'll be playing on the easiest difficulty, and the first couple of levels aren't necessarily all that hard. But yeah,
I think I said this last year too, that I still find the Fan Choice Award of Most Anticipated Game a really stupid category, because that's just asking for trouble. Because again, I like to remind you that No Man's Sky won the year before that came out.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah.
That bugs
I don't see many people being totally disappointed in Last of Us Part 2, but still, the category itself is just a bad idea. I really think they should ditch that.
I will at least say this also for the non-biased nature, at least the way that it looks. I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about Hellblade. Enough so that like I've had my own friends tell me don't play it because I won't sleep ever again. But I've heard enough good things about Hellblade that I'm surprised that it didn't walk away with best indie game. And that's one of the ones that Cuphead beat it. So that's a little surprising to me that Cuphead got the best indie game. I mean, granted, we had other awards go to Hellblade, but that seems like the one that should have won. And I think that was the expected winner of the best indie game award, which went directly to Cuphead, as well as Cuphead getting the best debut indie game. That's pretty awesome. So with that being said, Brinton, where were you standing with it? We already know which announcement you're excited for. And oh, by the way, if I don't mention this, then Forlorn Hope in our chat is going to get mad. Yes, the Zelda DLC, the story DLC that we've been hearing about, is officially launched as of that night. So you can experience the brand new stories if you have all the amiibos and all that awesomeness. Oh, wow, my door's open. My daughter just invades whenever she wants. But yeah, the Zelda DLC is available, so you guys can check that out. Brinton, where are you standing with this? Because I could already tell you the Zelda DLC is not what you're excited about.
Oh, that one actually caught me off guard. Like my fellow panelists had stated, I didn't know the Game Awards was happening last night. I just happened to get on Twitter, and I was like, OMG, this is something I should probably be participating in, which I kind of did on Twitter. So I guess I'll just get right to the point. Bayonetta 3, yay.
Yes, exactly. Because can I share this really quick, Brinton? Are you going to get mad at me if I do that?
I know what you're going to say, so go for it.
Okay, so literally, like I'm off editing podcasts because I'm trying to get to vacation time as quick as I can. And the first thing that I see, and granted, like all of this day has been Brinton screaming about stuff, because he also got the Tomb Raider announcement that's going to happen in 2018.
Yeah, yesterday was a lot of like figurative and literal screaming. Nathan can attest to this.
But the next thing that I got was Bayonetta 3 in development for the Switch. Dies. It's like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. He was already screaming about Tomb Raider. Yeah, he ran his lungs out. I even responded, I'm like, no, wait, don't release. I'll res you. And you just basically something along the line of Nathan already res me because of the Tomb Raider announcement. Like, yeah, that was your day. It really was.
Yes, yesterday was very, very, very good to me when I was actually participating.
I'll admit, I'm excited too.
Yeah, I mean, for those who are curious, Bayonetta 1 and 2 on the Switch, I already own. Like, I bought Bayonetta 2 when you could still buy like the Bayonetta 1 disc for the Wii U, so I really don't have any intention of rebuying that combo pack.
I'm kind of there too, because I already own Bayonetta on PS3, so I'm not like when I actually get around to Bayonetta 2, I just got Bayonetta 2. I didn't get the original, but I do like the fact that Platinum did have the forethought to say there probably are still people that have never played these games.
Yes,
and therefore let's get them out there before this game actually comes out.
Yeah, Bayonetta 2 strangely became very difficult to find. I'll be honest, I actually bought my copy off of eBay, which I was a little bit like worried about doing, and I paid more than $60. And luckily I got it like brand new, like still in its plastic wrap, and I was like, okay, this is fine. Like, this was a legitimate purchase. Yes, I may have overspent on a video game, but I knew that I wanted to play Bayonetta for YouTube, and I really wanted to play Bayonetta 2. So I was like, this is fine. Like, I'm okay with this. So for a while now, I was hoping that we would get a Bayonetta 3. The fact that they said that it's in development, I am making myself aware, okay, it's more than likely not coming out next year, which is fine, but the fact that it is in development was all that I needed to know, that I will be able to play Bayonetta 3 sometime in the future. So that was the announcement I was the most excited for. It's the only trailer I've watched. Again, like I said, I didn't even know the Game Awards was happening last night, so I haven't even had a chance to look at any other trailer. Oh, wait, I did watch the Breath of the Wild DLC. I actually started playing the Champion's Ballad today. I was playing a little bit before I got on tonight's show, And I was just thinking, oh, this will probably be short, simple, and to the point. Oh no, they added content. They
Yes.
added a lot of content.
That's what I'm being told, so I'm excited. But let's go ahead and wrap things up. So final thoughts before we move into the next story. Again, I'm trying very hard so that we can get into a live Q&A for you guys that are joining us on the live chat. But yeah, the Video Game Awards had plenty of awesome twists. It had some awesome reveals. I was overall excited with what we got. 2018 is looking to be an awesome year for games so far.
I just noticed this when looking at the game announcements. One is Vacation Simulator.
Yes.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, there were some weird ones in there. I'm not gonna lie. There were some weird ones, but at least we got some really awesome ones in the meantime, and so we have stuff to look forward to. Yeah, let's go ahead and move into the unless Romney has additional stuff.
Not too much. I'm just looking. Vacation Simulator. We're well on track. Someone's gonna make Recall one of these days. Somebody is gonna eventually make Recall, and society as we know it is just gonna stop.
Dude, we live in an era where I am bred as a thing, so I can't necessarily say I'm surprised. All right, let's go ahead and go into the next story, which again is kind of connected to tech and entertainment because it's going to affect YouTube creators as well as other creators, because Patreon has just recently announced the payment structure, that the way that they work their patron payments as well as other things to accommodate for creators. But well, if you've seen the Twitter reactions, that's not really what's happening. So to sum things up as best as we can, YouTube is charging a little bit more.
Patreon.
Oh, sorry, I said Patreon, didn't I?
You said YouTube.
Oh, I did? Okay. Patreon
yeah, you said YouTube.
Patreon is basically adding more charge to, like, if you spend $1 on Patreon for your favorite YouTuber, they're going to get less out of it because now they're adding additional stuff that they're taking out. So the basic way to be able to look at it is when you donate $1, originally the model worked that 5% of that went to Patreon. Okay. So, out of $1, so your YouTuber is getting 95 cents and the other nickel was going to Patreon. Now they're adding onto it. And I'm not even going to go into the formula because from what I understand, it's changed since then, but basically they're adding even more onto that. Like, I think it's an additional 6 to 10 cents that Patreon is going to be taking out of your contributions to be able to help combat the issues that they're seeing currently on Patreon and be able to further support their creators.
Yeah, looking at the numbers on the Patreon blog, it looks like they are going with a 2.9% fee. So basically, for every $1, they're taking 35 cents.
Yes. So already we've heard backlash from actual creators on their Twitter feeds and on their Facebook feeds and all that. And then we're also seeing them from people who are active patrons of these YouTubers, seeing that even less of their money is going to the content creators. And granted, the internet tends to blow these things out of proportion, but they are kind of justified in this regard, because it doesn't sound to me like the excess amount of money that's going to be going into Patreon's pocket is really going to be doing anything to combat the issues that they're trying to tackle. That's my opinion, but unless I can be proven wrong, it just doesn't seem like enough is going to be coming in to be able to combat that problem. I mean, am I incorrect on that?
Yeah,
well, I think it's mostly the problem is that it's where people are kind of feeling like they're being a little overcharged, yet only like a fraction of the actual money is going to the people they're trying to support. And that's why we're seeing a lot of a lot of patrons are now, canceling their subscriptions because they're paying out more, but getting less in return. So for me, this also makes me wonder, which I haven't totally seen because I've only seen like a handful of creators come out yet, but how this is going to start like affecting tier structures, because a lot of Patreons have sort of special tiers for how much you want to donate. Like, oh, you donate $20 a month, you get a special video request and so on and so forth. And that's really where people are feeling frustrated by it.
from what I'm even reading from this is that those structures aren't even safe with this restructuring. So at that point, they may even change how those can work in the future, which could in turn hurt a lot of creators that actually do have those higher tiers, like you're mentioning. Because then at that point, like, how do you handle the patrons that are now being, well, a little or a lot screwed out of the money that they're giving to the content creator? So there's plenty to go over on this one. Romney and Brinton, do you have anything you want to add to it?
Well, looking at this, and as someone who actually pledges quite frequently to Patreon, there are currently 4 creators I back on Patreon, I can see where the frustration is coming from. I'm not as quick to anger because I fully acknowledge there's a lot about this that I do not know. Looking at the numbers that will be going into effect starting December 18th, is that in addition to each pledge, there's 5% that is taken as a fee to Patreon, plus an additional 2.9% that is basically a service fee. So it means that basically means of the dollar that I give to a creator on Patreon, they are basically getting, looking at here, so let's see, 2.9% plus 35. I've got to crunch some numbers real quick. So it's a 7.9% fee in total plus 35 cents.
Yep.
It kind of hurts my brain to try to calculate off the top of my head, but I can see why people are upset, especially when you've got a lot of smaller creators that don't subsist on the larger contributions that larger channels can afford to, well, offer things to incentivize those larger offers. Because a lot of the pledges I offer are in kind of the $2 to $3 range. The highest I give to a creator is $5, and that's per video. And
a lot of the creators that I back on Patreon, like, they don't even have $2 structures; they have 1 or 5. So at the most, I don't do anything past 5. But I mean, again, I just don't see I don't see how Patreon is benefiting from this, or how they're gonna be able to restructure things to benefit creators.
Yeah, and I mean, on the one hand, it's frustrating, but on the other hand, I don't entirely blame them since, well, it does take a bit of money to run the site. And what they've been pointing out in their updated explanation in the wake of the initial announcement, they've recently issued a new statement that goes into detail about how their fees work. Before, and it was a common complaint that they even acknowledged, before they had problems where the transaction fees kept changing in price. Mm-hmm. So it seems like they're trying to find a way to keep their site running while keeping the transaction fees consistent. And so it's a tough thing. I'm not feeling the anger others are feeling because, again, I acknowledge I don't know what goes into the system. But between having a range of 2 to 10% for a transaction fees as opposed to a flat 5% fee and a flat service fee, well, honestly, that at least seems a little bit better way to run things. But again, I admit I don't know all the details, so that's why I'm not really jumping into the anger bandwagon.
Yeah. Where are you standing with it, Brinton?
I guess after hearing just your guys' opinions, I suppose I can't really jump on the anger bandwagon myself, just because I'm not also super familiar with how the website works. Yeah. The only thing that really worries me, and I guess I'm not really like angered, just because that's more of a secondary emotion, but more like saddened, are like certain creators who thrive off of Patreon and use that as like their way of being able to make their living and be able to do what they want to do. I was talking about a YouTuber that I I find it funny that I'm talking about this YouTuber again, but he does videos that have nothing to do with what his content is initially supposed to be about, and his Patreon, because I took a look at it, flat out says, all the money that I get from this allows me to not work a full-time job and allows me to do YouTube full-time. And so as much as I am against that sort of thinking, because I don't feel like he deserves the money for how crappy quality his videos are, in my personal opinion, at the same time, I do kind of worry for those type of people, because now they're going to be making less when that, like again, he's living off of the money that people are donating for his crappy videos, and so he will be making less money for his crappy videos, which makes me feel bad for him, because it's like, oh crap, now you're going to be making less money, so now you're not going to be able to do what you want with your channel, which means, again, all in my opinion, the quality of your channel is probably going to drop, because you're going to have to get, a 9-to-5 job so that you can basically not starve.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that's the thing to look at is, Patreon in a lot of cases, because of the adpocalypse, was what a lot of YouTube content creators were relying on, because they had to rely on the Patreon to get those funds that they were losing from the adpocalypse. Now, basically, Patreon is taking even more out of their wallet to be able to do all this stuff. So yeah, that option has to be considered. They have to go and get the 9-to-5 again, and they may not be able to do that. And they have to, at that point, if they have the 9-to-5, they've got to put the channel to the wayside. Kind of thing.
And I've just crunched the numbers, and now the outrage is making a lot more sense. So if we add the percentage that is taken, so the 7.9% plus the 35 cents that is being taken, that means for every $1 pledged on Patreon, the creator is only getting 57 cents.
Yeah. So that's
suddenly the anger's
for every $1 donation. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. Because that's basically almost half.
Yeah, that's
Sid
every $1.
Sid Alpha pointed this out in a video he made today, that a good majority of his own personal tiers are usually in that $1 to $2 range there.
Yeah,
that's where I don't think Sid goes. Your patrons are.
I don't think Sid intentionally. I think he intentionally goes to just $1 donations, doesn't he?
I don't know. I've never taken a look at his Patreon. He does emphasize that, but he does certainly emphasize that please take care of yourself before feeling the need to give me money. He does certainly emphasize that to people, is to make sure that you yourself are taken care of.
Yeah,
first.
I think that's his policy. Like he said on the videos, he's not going to do like these multi-tiered structures. I remember going in on a couple of AMAs that he did, and he was just like, "No, I'm not." Because somebody asked him like, "Are you ever going to do like a $20 tier or anything like that?" And he just said, "No, I'm not really interested in doing that. I don't want to have to rely on Patreon to keep things up and running." But right now, YouTube is giving him no choice. The same thing with any other YouTuber that relies on it.
Well, that's actually what someone here in the live chat was saying. Jiro the Hero. It sucks because most smaller YouTubers returning to Patreon since the apocalypse, and also VidMe going away is leaving content creators with little options.
At that point, like. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like,
no, you're okay.
We didn't even bring this up, but I mean, we have a VidMe channel holder here with Romney, and now he has to look forward to that shutting down on December 15th. So happy Star Wars, but screw you, VidMe, kind of thing. But on top of that, like we now have even more smaller revenue to be able to go and get that as content creators. This hurts overall. Somebody actually was also asking, once again, Robin's Review World, when your channel gets bigger, are you going to use Patreon? Given the recent stuff that's being announced, I don't know if I will. Like, I will admit that for the podcasts, I was strongly considering it because that's where I want to get a lot of my viewership. But if this is the way that it's going to go, I don't know. I really don't think so, considering that I would only get half of every $1 that gets given to me.
Nah, it's super bad. I feel like 2017 has been the year that has been shooting down people who put their content on the internet, whether it be art, videos. I mean, this is the direction that most people are going with what they want to do with their lives. Like, everything is becoming digital. People are trying to express and share their lives via the internet, via the content to create via the internet. So I just think it's terrible that these things like the YouTube drama and now Patreon drama, that is making it even more difficult for creators to make money.
I mean, for me, it would be along the lines of, if let's just say, for the sake of argument, I did a Patreon for Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. Would I do it to be an evil money grubbing guy? No, I do it to put the money back into the podcast to be able to do even more. Like, I don't know if you guys realize this, but we've been working at this podcast for a while, and on any given month, we have new ideas that we want to be able to do to help strengthen the podcast. And one of the things that hurts that is that financially, it doesn't really work out because we all have to have other jobs and other things to be able to bring all that in. So at that point, if I was going to do it, I would fund it all into the channel. And at that point, if I got a revenue out of that, I'd be very surprised. But a lot of that would go into some of the projects that we've wanted to do for quite a while now. I mean, you know, we had fun doing the Genshiken Abridged that we did. And if you guys haven't watched it, go watch it. But wouldn't it be great
at
to
least
have a
before
Patreon to
Kadokawa
help
takes
us
it down again?
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. But at that point, like, wouldn't it be great to have a Patreon to be able to help fund that so we could do it again, kind of thing?
Because that is actually something that we have talked about internally. But I mean, there's time and resources and talent that goes all into it. And I mean, Alex, Romney, myself, we all know we're not getting paid to do it, which we've completely agreed to and we're 100% fine with. But at the same time, like, you know, we like it's. I'm trying to make it sound like I'm not trying to say I'm bitter. I'm just trying to say that we want to do it, but we can't dedicate that much time into it because our time has to be dedicated elsewhere in order for us to make a living.
We're not Jacksepticeye. We're not Markiplier. We're not getting that kind of revenue, guys. Even with the Adpocalypse, that did cut their revenue too, but they were getting a lot. So we're not getting that, and therefore trying to do these projects is harder because we have to have those other jobs to maintain livelihoods. I mean, for crying out loud, Alex here works retail, and you guys see how often he puts videos up on his channel. And I know you don't get complainers, or at least that many complainers, Alex, but man, if you had a Patreon that you were getting solid funds to, that would inspire you to do more stuff on the channel, right?
That's true, because I mean, for all intents and purposes, if I had like a super successful Patreon that could give me the kind of money to sustain myself without the need to work part-time or full-time, then yeah, I would be able to dedicate myself. But I don't get that. You know, I have to work. I do have to work that job. I have to work the 9-to-5 to be able to support this, and YouTube has to be my side thing.
Okay. I'm going to wrap things up with, we actually got another live chat question. I kind of wonder if people will move to Twitch if it becomes more viable in the future. I could already tell you my opinion on the matter. Just given how Twitch works, I just stopped doing the videos entirely because one of the things that I like doing on my channel is the episodic format. So I love doing these Let's Plays that can come out on a weekly basis and be able to be as real with you guys. And I've done live streaming in the past, and I don't necessarily hate the prospect of it, but it's not necessarily something I want to do on an active basis. It's more something along the lines I want to do for like an anniversary or charity or something like that.
Yeah, and plus, if Twitch were to become an option, just for the sake of a hypothetical example, for Twitch to be viable for all of us, given that it works more akin to television, it's not something where we would be able to stream all the time. We probably would more or less have to treat it like television, make all of our content in advance, and then agree amongst each other what time said content would air, for lack of a better example.
Yeah, and then at that point, I mean, that becomes a whole other animal, trying to do any of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, I tried following Power Rangers Hyperforce, but it's hard to follow because it's a live stream, which means if you miss it, you miss it.
Well, and on top of that, like with Twitch, like let's just say you missed the very beginning of it and you came in like a month or two later, you couldn't watch that first episode because Twitch doesn't document that stuff for that long. So that's another reason why I wouldn't adopt the format, is because I couldn't keep like an active playlist of games that I was going through. With that being said, though, we need to move on because, again, I really do want to have some time for you guys to do a live Q&A. So the next thing that we're gonna spend a little bit of time on, but it's pretty much nothing new at this point. We have officially got the announcement down the line that, sadly, because of the disappointment that was Justice League, DC has announced that or Warner Brothers in particular, DC Films, has announced there will be restructuring within the DC movies. So here's the thing to keep in mind. We already had the issues with Batman v Superman, but around that time when we were all screaming Zack Snyder needs to be replaced, he literally moved from BVS to Justice League. So he was already doing that. That's why we didn't get him removed, because of the backlash. But now it looks like DC is officially listening. They're not getting as much money as they want. So John Berg, who was installed to run DC films alongside Jeff Johns, is now going to be leaving his current job and instead will become a production partner with Roy Lee, who is known for the Lego Movie and It. So apparently Berg did approach the studio 6 months ago about the idea, stating that he always ultimately wanted to be a producer at the studio, but not want to oversee the entire division. Johns kind of has the same deal, whereas he wants to be more in the advisory role. Like currently he stands as the creative officer or the DC Entertainment's chief creative officer, but now he wants to go more into an advisory role with the upcoming DC films. Overall, this just isn't good for the DC movies in the long run. I mean, like the sad reality is that as much as some of us actually did like Justice League and how it played out, it did not do well in Warner Brothers' eyes, and now has to kind of be pushed to the wayside while they work on other successful projects until DC can be that. Which I hate to say, guys, and this is my opinion, if Justice League couldn't do it, I don't know if because the upcoming team movie that they have is Flashpoint, I don't even know if that can do it. There'd be a lot that needed to happen there.
Yeah, looking at the information here, it's also kind of fascinating because I get the feeling we weren't the only ones frustrated with Zack Snyder, because according to Variety, the parent company of Warner Brothers, Time Warner, is said to have been frustrated that Warner Brothers kept bringing Snyder back, despite the backlash Batman v Superman had, and even the backlash with Man of Steel. So
they even had problems with it. According to the article, they even had problems with him and his vision for Justice League in regards to the villain Steppenwolf. So, I mean, already there was backlash from higher ups to take Snyder out of that role.
Yeah, so it's very much a case where it's very much one of those cases where Warner Brothers is clearly thinking, okay, clearly doing it Marvel's way is not working, so they're probably looking to do it the way Sony and Fox do it, where rather than having a DC film division, it looks like they're going to incorporate the DC superhero movies into just the main studio, Warner Brothers at large, which is how Fox and Sony do it with X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man.
Yep.
Whether or not that will actually pay off remains to be seen, but it's clear that they see that there's a need to massively retool the properties.
A big reason to massively retool. Unfortunately, I think there was just too much reliance on the success of the DC movie universe to be just like Marvel, and unfortunately, it just isn't panning out that way. Especially considering the controversy that was around Man of Steel, the even bigger controversy that was around BVS, and now Justice League not doing very well. Thankfully, Wonder Woman did well, but not enough to save it.
Yep. So far, the next film we've got on the books is coming out in November, and that's Aquaman, coming at us from James Wan. Seems that even James Wan already stressed that it's going to be a vastly different approach to the franchise, and is going to be in stark contrast to Justice League. So, cases where they're very much scrambling here. They don't know what they're doing, and it's clear that the people they thought knew what they were doing don't know what they're doing, and they're trying to jump ship.
Exactly. That's the best way to put it. They are rats leaving a sinking ship. Alex and Brenton, what are your takes on the restructuring of the DC? We can't call it the cinematic universe anymore because they don't even call it that, but the DC movie universe. Where are we standing with it?
They actually call it the extended universe. I have the Wikipedia open right on my other screen.
Yeah.
Because I was also curious, well, what film are we to expect next? And Aquaman is currently in post-production, and it will come out this time next year. So whatever Romney's looking at has accurate information. To answer your question, though, if they had said this before I saw Wonder Woman, I would be like, oh, okay, good. That's fantastic. I think I think they definitely need it. I'm a little I feel like I'm being pulled in both directions now, though, because I personally like Justice League. I'm not going to say it was an amazing movie,
No.
but it was good. I thought they did a really good job. My only and I told Adam this. I just feel like my only criticism with the DC extended universe is that I wish that they did solo movies before they had Justice League.
Yeah, if they actually followed the actual Marvel formula.
Yeah, because I felt like there were some backstories that were presented in Justice League that were very rushed to give the plot of Justice League sense. And I was like, no, I felt like the whole. How long has Justice League been out? Is it okay to do spoilers? Is there people?
I think it's been out long enough. Anyone who wanted to see it would have seen it by now.
So.
Okay. Well, like how the villain was collecting those 3 energy boxes, etc. I felt like when Wonder Woman had come out, they could have incorporated a little bit of that story into her movie. And so I found it weird that it was talked about in Justice League. And I was like, why are we learning about this now when we just had a solo Wonder Woman film?
Yeah.
And again, like if Aquaman came out before Justice League, that is something that they could have talked about. Like how the Atlanteans had their own like a mother box, their own mother box that they had to protect. And then they could have found some way to incorporate the one that was left with man again before Justice League came out.
The other thing too is that, I mean, when you look at it, whose origin stories did we have? We had Man of Steel, so technically Superman's, and we had, if we want to call it that, I don't know if I want to call it that, but we had Batman's origins with Batman v Superman. So at that point, we didn't have, like, when Justice League came out, we still could have done an origin film for Wonder Woman, for Flash, for Cyborg, for Aquaman, and instead the goal, because Warner Brothers wanted to get the big money, they rushed to Justice League and didn't necessarily care about the origin stories.
Yeah, and but to be fair, on that same token, on that same point is, well, we got Avengers, and even though we had Thor, Captain America, Iron Man at that point, and 2 different Hulk movies, basically, at the same time, we didn't have Hawkeye or Black Widow. So I feel like, again, the whole kind of reverse Marvel formula can be done. It's just Warner Brothers and DC have not been approaching it right.
Yeah.
If Batman v Superman had been a bit more focused, it probably could have already established Batman and Superman pretty easily without needing to, dive into their backstories, because we already know their backstories very well.
Well, and if it was done right, you could have also established the origins of Cyborg, Flash, and even Wonder Woman to an extent because of the files.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the other thing to consider...
Go ahead.
If you had stuck to the two-parter that they had intended to do with Justice League, then you would have had the time to set everybody's stories up a lot more thoroughly. Instead, they decided we're still going to jump into this full steam ahead right after Batman v Superman, rather than push it off. And yes, pushing off the movie would have been expensive, but it's like, you got to think about what's going to cost you more in the long run. Pushing it back and retooling your story more versus releasing it and having another massive flop on your hands.
And then, Robin, you had a thought.
Well, the thought I had, using Hawkeye and Black Widow isn't really the greatest example, because even though they were minor characters, they still had other movies they were established in. In Thor, you got to see the first appearance of Hawkeye before you knew him as Hawkeye. You basically saw Clint Barton. And Iron Man 2 was basically our introduction to Black Widow, because she was a major character in the story of Iron Man 2.
She was.
Whereas with DC, we got teases of the other origins of the other 3, for lack of a better term. Granted, Cyborg gets a little bit more... Like, Cyborg, I think, is the one where they at least handled it properly, where, okay, the mother boxes factor heavily into how he got his abilities. So there, I felt with Cyborg it at least made sense, because the way he became Cyborg at least tied into the main story. But with Flash and Aquaman, we still were missing that establishment. And honestly, although I never put out a review, seeing Justice League, because I'm kind of with Brenton, I enjoyed it, but that may be because I went in with really low expectations.
Yeah.
But the story of Justice League if this had come out after a series of better movies with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, I probably would enjoy it a lot more, because it's a case of the story we get is very much akin to an episode of the Justice League animated series. I was looking at it and I'm just like, this would very well have been an episode of the Justice League animated series. But the other thing is that it's almost as if they were trying to retcon the events of Batman v Superman, where they're just like, Superman was such an inspiration, but he wasn't. Batman v Superman made it clear that a lot of people didn't actually like him. So this whole, he was an inspiration, he was a beacon of hope. No.
Yeah, there's tons of problems there, and part of that is just because Romney kind of hit the nail on the head. If we'd gotten some largely successful movies that had done a lot of great things, then we wouldn't have these issues. But unfortunately, we had, let's just say Man of Steel existed. We had that controversial pick. Then if we'd had a solid Batman movie to be able to go into that, a solid Wonder Woman movie, an Aquaman movie, and all of that was successful, then we would have had that momentum going in. But unfortunately, that was all put into Batman v Superman, which wasn't.
Which flopped, which was so bad.
And it's I have to say this, it's especially telling when the film is even backpedaling on the music, because the music wasn't the music we heard in Man of Steel or Batman v Superman. What did we hear? The John Williams Superman theme and the Danny Elfman Batman theme. So even there, I'm just like, wow, they are so desperate. They're even backpedaling on their own music.
Well, we did. We still got we still got some of Wonder Woman's theme, the Chunky XL theme.
Yeah, you got that. But the funniest part that I want to take out of this, and I want to wrap this up so that we can get into the Q&A for people. But I find it funny that we all kind of walked in the same way. We walked in with low expectations, and because of that, we actually were able to enjoy the movie. We still had problems with it, but Brinton and Romney, you kind of bring up I'm in agreement. But me and Alex, I think, are both in agreement with you guys as well, because that's kind of how we ended up viewing it when we vlogged it. Is like, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex. We both kind of gave it like C+ scores kind of thing.
Yeah, we were both. We felt the movie had its problems, but we were a little more positive and thinking like, hey, they're starting to get a little bit more onto the right track here. It's still going to take some work, but they're starting.
So at the bare minimum, what I want to basically say is like, I'm glad that we got this new direction with Wonder Woman and Justice League, and it makes me hopeful for the upcoming movies. But I can see Warner Brothers' reaction here, and I can see DC's reaction. So at that point, yeah, this might be the best way to be able to do it, because your initial launch didn't help. But maybe if you can fix this over time, will actually get you up to that point where you can contend with Marvel.
And that is why I said, if they had said this before Wonder Woman came out, I'd be all for it. And that's why I feel stretched in two different directions.
Yeah.
Because they're saying it after Justice League. But to end this awesome conversation, because I've loved everything you three have had to say, when are we going to get to a point where we go into a DC film with high expectations? Because
it's going to take a while.
Because I think it's sad that all four of us went in with low expectations, which was enough for us to enjoy the film. Mm-hmm. I think that is terribly sad. And that is why, and again, that's why I'm getting pulled in two different directions.
That's one of the things that I find funny is like, I walked in with, I mean, Man of Steel was controversial to me, but I ended up liking it overall, especially the Henry Cavill Superman. I really didn't have a problem. But then Batman v Superman was what drove me down, because I did not like the idea. Originally, I thought that they should have gone the Marvel route and done some origins.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I'm kind of in the same camp where I liked Man of Steel. I was one of the few people. One of my reviews was one of the few ones that actually enjoyed Man of Steel.
Yeah.
But again, Batman v Superman drove my disappointment down, especially considering that they, had the second movie in their franchise ruin what is probably arguably the most famous and infamous storyline in comics history, the death and return of Superman.
Not only that, but ruin the most anticipated storyline that could come to a movie. Like, people wanted this for a long, long time, and it didn't meet up.
Yeah. It's very much was one of those.
I never saw Man of Steel.
Yeah. I can understand that point of view too. So anyway, I do actually want to move on, because I want to have like this last half hour be solely for our listeners because, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys put your live questions in there while I talk. And while you're doing that, I might actually get into some of the questions we already have. But the first thing that I want to start things off with is thank you guys. I cannot begin to say it enough. I know I say it a lot to you guys, but I do mean it. This has been while it's been a sucky year when it came to news, this has been an amazing year for the podcast because not only have we been able to expand our audience on YouTube, we got approved on iTunes. So we have an audience there. I am actually also very proud to announce this week that I haven't announced yet is that Android listeners are no longer restricted because we are officially on Google Play as well. All three of my podcasts got approved earlier this week, starting with Geek News. So Android users can now also appreciate our podcast and just the amount of love and support you guys have shown for these podcasts, which we have literally worked. Is it close to 5 years? It's 5 years for me. It's not 5 years for you guys, but it's 5 years for me. And the amount of support you guys have shown is just, it's brought a tear to my eye. I don't know how many times this last few months, because this is now officially a thing. Like these podcasts are actually doing fairly well and they're growing. So that's why I really wanted to be able to do a Q&A for you guys because you are what made this happen. Without you guys, we would not have seen growth in our individual channels as well as here, as well as for the podcast. iTunes would not have approved us. Google Play would not have approved us. There are so many things that couldn't have happened if not for you. So as a thank you, and as a happy holidays to you guys, the floor is officially yours. Ask the questions that you want to ask. I'm going to keep this in like an AMA format, so you can ask us anything, but, keep it clean. Don't ask us whether or not we'd bang this guy or this girl. We're probably not going to answer that. But I think this is the most appropriate question that we could start off with while people get questions into the live chat. So I'm not necessarily going to mention the ones that come through, like who they came from on Twitter or Facebook, just because I really want to get that authorization from you guys before I do it. Which member of the GNRO podcast would make the best sumo wrestler?
Not me.
All of us. So you can give your opinions, but I feel it's a good way to start things off for it. If I had to... See, a lot of people might actually think that I'd go down the line of with Romney because Romney has admitted on the podcast that he is a martial artist and therefore you'd have some good stuff, right? But I'm going to go for the left hook solution and I'm going to go with Alex. I think Alex is the one that has absolutely no weight on anybody and therefore he's the underdog. And if pro wrestling has taught me anything, it's that the underdog eventually wins at WrestleMania.
The only way I can win is if it literally plays out exactly like it does in the movie Spider-Man.
Exactly.
And therefore, I need
problem is with
spider
sumo.
powers.
Yeah, and the problem is with sumo, it's all grappling and slapping, and there's no cage for you to cling to either, so I'm not sure if spider powers would actually help all that much either.
But hey, one of us would get to play Bonesaw, so is it necessarily a bad thing?
I just imagine Alex just slapping a fat, sweaty man. For some reason, it was just super entertaining.
Oh my gosh! Now I have the image in my head. Thanks so much, Brenton.
Yeah.
This is us like winding down and kicking back and
yes,
the floodgates are open.
Exactly.
Yeah, just. Again, not to toot my own horn, I think in terms of like serious martial ability, I wouldn't win, but I probably would last a decent amount of time in a sumo match. But I'm not that great of a grappler. I mean, I'm able to throw, like back when I did Taekwondo, I was able to throw fairly heavy people, but that was when they were wearing a full gi. In sumo, you don't got no shirt to grab. I'd be at a disadvantage.
You got the diaper, and that's about it. So. There we go. I think I've announced Alex. Romney goes for himself. Alex is going for I can't remember who you picked.
I didn't pick anyone. I just said if it were me, I'd have to have Spider-Man powers to survive.
So at that point, who would you vote for then?
I'd say you, because I think you're the only one of us. I'm sorry, no offense, but you're the only one of us big enough really to contend.
It just had to go down that road, didn't it? I just had to get now. You know what? I can't necessarily hold that against you because I'm you guys, for the guys who have never met me, I have to admit I'm a fairly girthed individual. So yeah, but then at that point you have to imagine me in the diaper. So that's on you, not me.
If it's any consolation, though, you do resist the cold a lot better than I do.
This is true. I do. Yeah, Alex gets so mad at me when like January and February come around because I'm out there in shorts, and he's just like
shorts and a short sleeve T-shirt, and I'm like bundled up head to toe.
Yeah, you and me both, Alex. So don't you worry.
All right, Brinton, who is your pick for the best sumo wrestler?
Nah, I don't know. I'll just go for Alex.
All right, there you go. Okay. I think it's only appropriate that Alex started the whole space shuttle meme, and now he's the best sumo wrestler amongst us all. So we're already off to an amazing start.
Yeah, it just means he's got to aim for Ozeki.
There you go. So the next question that I actually want to get into, and this one was provided by Facebook, I think. Yeah, Facebook, because this was a PM to me. So this is something that's been asked of the Draken Shadow channel too, but it did get asked of the podcast, and that is, as content creators on YouTube and as the podcast as a whole, do we have any New Year's resolutions or things that we want to be able to do with our channels in the coming year, as well as things that we want to do for the podcast in the coming year? I'll answer the podcast last because that's kind of my deal, but go ahead, Brinton.
Yeah, I want to go first. I actually, when you're asking the question, I was like, no, I don't even think I've thought about it. But then I was like, are you kidding me? You have thought about it. There are actually two things, one minor and one major, that I would like to bring to my channel next year. And I know, and I say minor and major because the minor is just like ridiculously easy. Like the easiest thing that I'm going to be able to do. But as in term for the major stuff, finding the time to execute it is where I'm most worried, just because I'm putting school first, hence why you haven't had a whole lot of Final Fantasy VII. I mean, I am coming up on my break, like my semester break, so I'll be able to maybe focus on YouTube a little bit, but I'm also trying to find another new job again. So I mean, so one minor, one major thing. So to answer the question, in terms for my YouTube channel, yes, I do have two resolutions, one minor, one major, and the minor one will be revealed at the start of the new year.
Yep. That's honestly kind of my viewpoint on my channel, is that there are going to be a couple of things that I reveal at the beginning of the year, but unfortunately, one of my goals, this is going to sound really bad to those who follow my YouTube channel, because I really do love and appreciate you guys, but because of the recent events that happened this last August, it made me come to realize just how hectic my schedule actually is. So I really kind of the cutting back a little bit is going to happen a little bit more, but we're going to dedicate ourselves to what is actually out there. That's about as much as I actually want to go into it. My real resolution is just to, as sappy as this sounds, to focus more on the community. Because I feel like in a lot of cases when I do live streams and all that, and we bring up people like Markiplier who have tons and tons of subscribers, I tend to discount those who are actually formed around my channel and around the podcast. And I don't mean to do that, because I really do love and appreciate you guys. The fact that you guys took time out of your day to check out my content and to be able to give me the feedback that you have. So I really just want to be able to show more respect to you guys. And I feel like in the past year, I haven't been the most respectful in that regard. And also just to move things forward in the games and all of the other stuff that we're amazingly doing for things like Gaming with the Geeks and all that. That's all going to be going forward. It's just, unfortunately, I'm also going to be cutting the schedule a little bit to accommodate for actual vacation time and being able to spend time with my daughter, because she's growing and I'm in here. So that's the way it goes. What about Alex or Romney?
Me, I want to say, I want to at least try and get a little better about producing content. I had a pretty good start this year. Unfortunately, it's just sort of like I kind of got burned out in the summer. Not burned out making videos, just burned out from work. And it's like I would work a straight week, 5 days, and at the end of the week, I would just like, even at the start of the week, I would vow to myself, okay, this weekend I'm going to make a video of something. And then fortunately, Saturday would roll around and I'm just like, I am too burned from the week to do anything. So this year, I want to at least, I can't promise like super frequent regular uploads like weekly or daily or anything, but I want to at least say, I'm going to make a lot more videos. I'm going to work on a little harder on my channel, and I'm going to keep producing good content for you guys.
All right. And Romney, what are your New Year's resolutions, at least for right now, for the channel?
Okay, well, for my channel specifically, without giving too much away, I do have announcements that I'm going to be making as part of my year-end vlogs. Some of them may not be happy announcements, but let's just say I'm going to kind of be changing the way I approach producing content here on YouTube. It's both in large part due to some of the recent current events, but just more kind of needing to reorder my priorities. But there are some projects that do have kind of in the works that I do want to get back to. But I don't want to like give the full spiel here, but I do have plans for my channel specifically. They may not be ideal, but it's kind of a case of, it's very much one of those, there are going to be some I need to put my foot down moments. But it's not like saying, oh, I'm going to like quit YouTube and burn my channel to the ground. It's not that. It's just more, I'm going to rethink how I've been approaching videos. There are certain other avenues, including possibly other channels I may want to start, to kind of get back into certain areas of interest that I've kind of been neglecting. I don't want to give too much away since I'm going to go into more detail as part of a year-end vlog. As for any personal resolutions, well, I don't really get into the habit of making a lot of resolutions because, well, given my personal habits, anytime I've made a resolution, I've always ended up not keeping it, so I kind of don't want to tempt fate.
Okay. I actually forgot this other part too. This is another resolution I have, but just not necessarily for just the channels. I also am going to try very hard not to, because I think we do. I think I do it a lot on the podcast, and I would love you guys' feedback on it too. But we bring up a lot of more popular YouTubers, more popular podcasters, things like that, and I actually get into the bad habit of comparing myself to them, and I think that actually hurts like my genuineness. So that's another thing that I'm going to do is fix that too. Sorry, I'm bringing that up because now we're going to get into the podcast. I cannot begin to tell you guys like the ideas that come out of these three little yahoos as well as myself on a regular basis that I wish that we had the funds to be able to do them or the time to be able to do them. And it never works out. I mean, I don't know how many times we brought up, like, we would love to do this series as an abridged, or we would like to do this particular sketch or so. Like I just recently have, because of a lot of the sillier things that we've been doing on the podcast, said like, let's do little SNL sketches of some of the stories that we've covered. And I would love to be able to do that. But unfortunately, just time is a factor and money is a factor. But I mean, we already have plenty of awesome stuff that you guys can look forward to just with the end of the holidays. Some people were already asking, like, what do you have planned for the holidays since we aren't doing things live? We actually are bringing back some old favorites. So I have a feeling you guys will like that right off the bat, that we're going to be doing for the podcast in the last couple of weeks of the year. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But that's really like any New Year's resolution is just to continue to grow the podcast and continue to do what we love doing and hopefully have these three yahoos join me on this journey, continue to join me further on this journey. Because I love doing this every Friday night. I don't know if I say it enough to you guys. I really do love doing this every Friday night when I can do it. So that being said, let's go into the next question, which we actually do have some questions in the chat now. So we'll go to that, and then I'll go into another one. Somebody heard a dog. It's almost like Brinton has a dog or something.
I have a 5-month-old puppy.
Yes, you do.
Oh.
So least favorite games or movies of the year. So my favorite game of the year, this is going to be spoiling my top 10, but it's already number 1, and that is Horizon Zero Dawn. And it's simply because, as much as I love and appreciate Zelda or Horizon did enough to change the formula a little bit for me that it just sticks out more to me. Just given the games that I've reviewed this year, I think that they'll all have high runnings, but my game of the year would be Horizon Zero Dawn. Right off the bat. My movie of the year, I don't even know that yet. If I were to give you guys an assessment right here and now, it probably would be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. But me and, well, the Shadow Blazer are going to be doing a video on that, so that could change right off the bat. So who wants to go next? Like your game of the year and your movie of the year. Oh, I forgot least favorite. Least favorite game. I have no idea. Like a lot of the ones that are on that list have pissed me off for different reasons. So if I were just to go off the top of my head, it'd probably be Mass Effect Andromeda because of how disappointing that ended up being. I was so excited for it when it came out. I haven't even finished the original trilogy, and it pissed me off so much that game underdelivered as much as it did. So that'd probably be my least. But that again is subject to change when I actually do my top 10 worst games of 2017. So who's up next? Who wants to give their worst game of the year and their best movie?
It's a bit tricky for movies because I haven't actually seen that many movies this year due to a lot of factors of life. But it's a tough call given the ones that I have seen, both in terms of ties of most disappointing as well as most that I enjoyed. So I guess I'll get the disappointing out of the ways. It's a two-way tie for most disappointing, like with one only slightly edging out, and that would have to be like the most disappointing that I would have to say, aside from The Mummy. It's very much it's a three-way tie between The Mummy, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, and Ghost in the Shell. Like, the worst of the three would have to be The Mummy, because that is probably the biggest way to mishandle a franchise I have ever seen. I mean, they did a worse job than Warner Brothers, which I thought was impossible, but there you go, Universal. Now that I'm remembering the movies, yeah, I'm just calling it here. The Mummy is probably the most disappointing film, and this is coming from someone who loves horror films, but yeah, that film had so many missteps, so many mistakes. I mean, at least King Arthur has some laughably goofy moments, and Ghost in the Shell was just boring, but The Mummy, that would probably be the worst film I've seen all year. Definitely The Mummy. As for the best, this is where it gets tricky, because there are three films that I really, really enjoyed that it's really hard to decide between them. I mean, to kind of go in order of release, first there was Logan, which I really enjoyed because it did a really good job. It was a nice send-off to Hugh Jackman. It was a nice, gritty story in the X-Men universe, a good way to bow out both Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman. Then there was also Power Rangers, which surprised me and how much I enjoyed it.
I'll agree with you on that.
Well, yeah, and some people were criticizing my review of it, but the way I put it, because I did the sensible thing and avoided watching the show before watching the movie so that I wasn't nostalgia blinded. But the big thing is that it went out of its way to make sure that the main characters weren't given the powers right away. They had to earn it. That's something you rarely see in the Power Rangers show proper. Some seasons have done it, where you actually see the main characters actually having to earn their abilities, but it's usually very rushed. I mean, probably the series that has done it the best out of the entire franchise would probably have to be RPM, because at least RPM, you get the origins, you understand where each of the characters are coming from, and they demonstrate why they deserve to be Rangers ahead of being Rangers. The only other one that comes to mind that did something similar was Lightspeed Rescue, and that's because they were specifically headhunted by Captain Mitchell to be chosen to be Rangers. But then the third movie that I also really enjoyed is War for the Planet of the Apes. That trilogy of reboots is probably one of the best sci-fi reboots we've ever received. And War for the Planet of the Apes brings that whole story full circle. It literally is kind of the end of this main story the films were telling, and it's done in such a way that it's incredible. There's no other way to put it. It's like a nice Shakespearean exploration of human history, but seen through the eyes of the apes. And so that's why those three movies are probably the best I've ever seen. And it's so hard to say which one of them is the one I most enjoyed, because those are the three films I saw that I really, really liked.
All right. So Shadow Blazer.
Okay, so for my favorite movie for the year, this is a bit of spoiler too for my top list / 12 Days of Anime coming up, but my top movie would be Your Name, the anime film from Makoto Shinkai. That one I was really looking forward to. Though, of course, like any movie that gets a lot of hype and a lot of press, you start to get a little weary, but I'm so happy to say for me, it totally lived up to its hype, lived up to all the potential I could hope it could be. I really enjoyed it. I walked out of the movie feeling great, feeling just uplifted and happy, which is always good when you want with a movie like that. You want to feel that surge of great emotion. And that's what the movie just was touching to me. And it kind of reminds me of some other movies that I like from anime, and that I can't complain about that either. So for least favorite movie, which you could also say is my absolute worst movie, it has to be Alien Covenant. That was just such a terrible movie. It was so mishandled and just makes me really wonder, boy, what would have Neil Blomkamp done if Ridley Scott hadn't wrangled it back out of his hands at the last minute like that? And just, it's so, it's such a mess of a movie, and and I think, again, the big problem is it still is trying to connect to Prometheus, but doesn't make a whole lot of sense in doing so, because even Prometheus could never really make up its mind if it wanted to be literally the same universe as Alien or not. Prometheus was very indecisive like that, and that's this problem with the movie. It wants to be an Alien movie, but also wants to be a Prometheus sequel, and it really doesn't do a good job at being either.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Brinton, where are you standing with it?
So I'm going to go with video game for mine, because I'm still trying to put together my best and worst movies of 2017. Especially since I haven't seen a certain Star Wars yet.
Yeah, exactly. That could change the whole equation.
Yeah, it actually really could. But my favorite video game, hands down this year, Breath of the Wild.
All right.
And I'll go more into that when we do the first podcast, like live podcast of 2018.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, you're getting these answers right now, guys, but for those who haven't joined or who are brand new, welcome. But the first thing we do is we put 2017 into retrospective. So we're going to be doing the best and worst of 2017. So you technically could get different answers right off the bat. So that already is going to be an awesome thing for you guys to be able to compare when we come back in January. And then what was your worst, Brinton?
Arms.
Really?
Yeah.
You were excited for Arms.
Let me tell you how excited I was for that game and how disappointed I was, but I'll get more into that in the next couple of weeks. So
exactly.
Hold tight.
All right. And unfortunately that we have run out of time. We are exactly at 10 o'clock. So thankfully we were able to get to a few of you guys' questions, but here's the cool thing. And here's what I actually want to encourage you guys. We have additional content that is coming. Like I said, it's just not going to be live. And we're going to be bringing back some old favorites. And one of the things I would really like to do is take these questions and also answer them while we record that stuff too. So along with, you can reply on Twitter, you can reply on Facebook, leave your questions in the comments below to this podcast so this specific video, and we will also address them there too. So any other questions that you want to be able to ask us. And once again, thank you guys so much for supporting us for this year, because it's been amazing to have you guys, both old and new, be able to join us on this journey. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. So if people want to get a hold of us for the various opinions that we've expressed, as well as weird opinions that we've had when we've had to literally think about all of our fellow panelists in sumo gear, Brinton, how do people get a hold of you?
I can be found here at YouTube at Brinton Volley Gaming, as you can see right here. And you can also follow me on Twitter at bvolley01, where you can see me retweet my figurative screaming over Bayonetta and Tomb Raider. And you can also be notified of new videos that get put up on my channel. But I do highly recommend subscribing so that they drop in your subscriber box when they are brand new.
All right. And Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me on YouTube. Shadow Blazer 3000 is my channel, and I do produce anime content for the channel, as well as the occasional game content, the occasional Let's Play. And if you want to follow me on social media and always be up to date of when a new video goes live, or just see whatever the heck is on my mind, you can follow me on Twitter at AlexJShort.
All right. And Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can always find me here on YouTube at youtube.com/StudioGhostUtah. And until December 15th, you can also find my videos on VidMe at vid.me/StudioGhost. I am also on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews, no apostrophe. And I am also on Twitter at RomneyReviews with no apostrophe S. And for the last Romney's recommendation on the live podcast for the year, I'm going to recommend a film that I watched this week that I found incredibly enjoyable. It's not perfect, but I enjoyed it. As I've mentioned before, and as Adam has also mentioned earlier, I am a martial artist. I'll go into the specific styles another time, but one thing I've been doing to kind of decompress from NaNoWriMo is watching the stack of martial arts movies that I've had in my collection that have been neglected. And one such movie that I watched is The Swordmaster. It's a film from China, directed by Derek Yee and produced by Sui Hark, who many of you may recognize as the director of the Once Upon a Time in China films. But it's very much an enjoyable wuxia film, which, unlike the other martial arts films that you may be familiar with, wushu and wuxia films are a lot more poetic with their movements, and their characters tend to be more akin to demigods as opposed to normal people. But it's a very engaging story. To kind of give a very abstract summary, it's almost kind of like a Chinese martial arts equivalent of Rurouni Kenshin almost, where it focuses on someone who is the master of a very deadly sword style who no longer wants to kill and is trying to live a humble life from his old life to try to basically appear into his new life and drag him back. And that's the simplest way I can summarize it, but the film itself, it's like watching a novel where it has different layers with all the different characters that play all these different parts. And the choreography, despite its reliance on CGI, is also pretty cool to watch, especially the final sword fight at the end of the film. So if you like films like Hero, for example, where it has that same poetic movement, you'll like The Swordmaster. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll be tweeting out the trailer, and that's this week's Romney's recommendation is The Swordmaster by Derek Yee, produced by Sui Hark, available on DVD and Blu-ray from Well Go Entertainment.
All right. And if people want to get a hold of my channel, the best way to be able to do that is, first of all, you're on my channel right now. So youtube.com/Drac2326. That's where all my content is hosted. I do Let's Play content, reviews, vlogs. I go over all things geek, roughly. I don't necessarily stay to just video games, so you guys can check that out as well. And if you guys continue to like, comment, and subscribe, that would be awesome too. You guys can also follow my channel's Facebook page at DracLP. Is all you need, or all you need to do is search for is DracLP, and you'll be able to get your access to it. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Drac2326 and be able to leave your questions there, and I'll get to you as soon as I am able to be able to do so. If you want to be able to follow the podcast directly, first of all, we would recommend please to subscribe to the RSS feed. That's the best support that you guys can show for us. You can either follow us directly on Podomatic, which is geekyweek.podomatic.com, or you can, and I confirm this, you can look up Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions on both iTunes and Google Play Music for Android users and be able to get access to the podcast. We'd be happy to have you guys as soon as we get everything up to speed. I know that there are a couple of videos that are missing, but holidays, that's really what happened. I couldn't edit everything all at once. That being said, also, please support the RSS feed, but you can also follow the podcast on social media, and you can do it under the exact same tag. So you can look for us on Facebook and Twitter at GeekyNRO, and you'll be able to get up-to-the-minute information when we go in live, be able to ask your questions there, be able to submit stories that we might be able to cover on the podcast. as well as be able to provide feedback, because we always try to get better for you guys. We always try to improve the podcast as best as we can. And those are the best ways to be able to support us. And also, if you want to leave your stories, you can leave it at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us. So thank you guys so much for all of the support you guys have been able to give us throughout 2017. That is it for us live. We will be back live with Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions on Friday, January 5th. And like I said, you're not going to be missing out on content, guys. We have lots in store. But until then, for me, for Brinton, for Alex, and for Romney, we will see you guys next time for even more Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. Happy holidays, everybody. And thank you again.